Hello, and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 148. Today, I unpack how your relationship with money will impact your future. I will look at reasons why you have a particular relationship, how it might impact you positively and negatively, and give away some great strategies on how you can repair your relationship with money if it's not that great. So, jump on into episode 148, and I know you're going to take a lot away from this. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today we are talking money, that thing that has such an impact on our lives. And a lot of people are panicking about it at the moment, I feel, and I think the media doesn't help us out at all there. But we're going to talk about our relationship with money. What is your relationship with money and where it comes from? And if it's not a great relationship, do you need to perhaps look at it and sort it out? So, what is your relationship with money? And I'm going to start with that quote that we often hear, which is actually incorrect. People say that money is the root of all evil, which I don't know if you know, but it's a Bible quote. But the actual quote is the love of money is the root of all evil. So that kind of can change the way that perhaps you think about it. And often, the way we feel about money is so deeply entrenched in our subconscious that we don't even know that it's impacting so much of what we do. I have an interesting relationship with money, and I know my reasons for it. And I've worked with so many people who have a relationship with money, and I know their why. And sometimes I see sabotage, and sometimes I see like a good relationship, which means that it's working well for them. But so often I have seen a negative one, and it's not always a one person negative one. There can be two people in a relationship, and they've got two different relationships with money, and the outcome can be quite devastating if it's not worked on. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about money. Where does our relationship with money come from? Do you have a positive mindset about money or a negative mindset? Do you have a growth mindset or a non-growth mindset? Like, what is your relationship with money? Do you believe that there is not enough money and you need to hoard it? Or do you believe that there's not enough money, so when you get money, you need to spend it? Now, I had an interesting conversation with somebody. If you did read last week's email, I was actually at the hairdresser, and the test, because we always test, have a read and make sure we're happy with it. I'd written it, and I read the test come through before we sent it out to the database. And I read it out loud to my hairdresser, and there were people in the room, and somebody said, "Oh, I was just brought up poor, so I just spend all the money as soon as I get it." And I thought, wow. And she just said it straight like that. And it was just such an interesting thing for her to say. And maybe that's you. Are you one of those people? As soon as you get money, you spend it because you're not used to having it. And that can be one impact of being not used to having it. Or it could be the opposite, not used to having it, so you hoard it and you're too scared to spend it. You save it all up. Now, both of those things can have a negative impact on our life. And then what if the opposite's true? You're brought up with a lot of money, so you don't really think about spending. You assume there's going to be enough, and there always is enough, or maybe there's not. It depends on what's going on in your world. For myself, I have a belief that there is always money. Money will always turn up. It just comes. So that's a fabulous belief that I have. But I was brought up with a father who was very frugal, and he taught us, I'm one of seven, he taught us that we worked hard for our money, and all of us, or most of us, I think, they don't listen to this, so I can say maybe just me. No, that we're hard workers. And even that, I think it's important to be a hard worker. And, the 4-hour work week says the opposite. So that's interesting. But my father we work hard, and that's how we earn money, and we invest our money. So I remember being about 17 years old, and we'd have to save up to $1,000. And when we got $1,000, we had to put it on term deposit in the bank. And that's what he taught me to do. Yeah, probably around the age of 16 or 17. And that was how we grew up, that we got our money to make more money for us. And then he would say, and look, in 6 months' time, that $1,000 will have earned you this much money for doing nothing. And I think that that was a very lucky experience to have had, because it taught me very young that your money can do something for you. And the other thing that he pushed into our heads was, you don't go anywhere unless you're owing the bank money. That was him. That's what he thought. I'm not saying that's right, but in his mind, you leverage the money from the bank to increase your wealth. And he was a very successful man. So that was some of the money mindset I was brought up with. That was from my father, but then from my mother would like to spend money, because my mother loved clothing, and I think I may have that thing going on as well. And so she would buy things and then hide them in other wardrobes. So that sort of was a secret way of using money. So there are two different sort of stories going on there, but they are stories that have formed my relationship with money, and you have them as well. So have a think about what your either both parents, were they in agreement over money, or what your mum was about with money, or what your dad was about with money, and just the conversations you heard growing up. What were those conversations? We don't have any money, we can't afford that. Those sorts of things will imprint in your brain and have an impact on how you are right now. What did you hear growing up? Was it positive or negative around money? Did you hear money is the root of all evil? When we do now know, which I only found out this morning when Bob and I were talking about it, was that the love of money is the root of all evil. Meaning, if money is more important than in everything else, then you're not living in a great world. I often work with people, and sometimes there is that disparity. Well, I always work with people, that there is that disparity around the relationship with money. And when it's extreme, it can be very sabotaging. And many years ago, before I came on board in coaching within this realm, I worked with a couple who were at opposite ends of the spectrum when it came to money. So the wife had been brought up with not much money at all, and she had that mindset of she would just spend, and her husband, he just loved her so much. It frustrated him, but he didn't stop it in any way. And he was brought up, you've worked very hard and you you make a lot of money. And they did make a reasonable amount of money, but the wife just wouldn't stop spending. She would not stop spending, because for her it was important that she was seen as somebody who had money. So they're renting a house, they're paying off a car, they're doing all sorts of things that they have the house and they have the car and they're taking photos, and their social media says one thing, let's call it fake book, but on the other hand, none of that was true. And she would just outright go and book a holiday without speaking to him about it first. And he would come back from that holiday having to work so hard to pay for it. And that is when that's two very different relationships with money that they're clashing. And she was absolutely sabotaging their success. And it was a very interesting dynamic that we had to unpack and talk about. And they had to go and get some help around that, because that was definitely something that was slowing them down to becoming successful. I have another couple where I had worked with in the past, and the husband was brought up by in a more frugal type world, but with a reasonably healthy relationship to money. But the wife was brought up quite in a very lush world where there was always a lot of money. And that's interesting, their dynamic, how they've come to a way of negotiating what she would still be able to do and have, and what he would still be able to do and have, because he was used to going without, so he would go without so she could have what she wanted. So when you start looking at the relationships that people have with money, we can start noticing the outcomes that people have. Because with the first couple, where I said the wife would just go and spend, 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 that just ruined their outcome. They they weren't able to have a successful or financially successful life. They might have been having great experiences, and there's a good argument there, but there is going to be nothing left, and renting is only getting harder to do as we get older. So it'll be interesting to see how they ended up sort of turning out, we'll say, after they had their work with a counsellor. And I would definitely recommend, if you are having that much of a disparity, then to getting some professional help, because it's not great when you both have coming from different backgrounds and you can't imagine, or you don't know how to see it from the other person's point of view, really. And maybe it does take somebody who's very professional to help you out with that. So there are, like I said, our parents have a massive impact on us. Economic factors growing up, if we didn't have money, how that impacted us. Cultural and societal influences. Many cultures, it's about giving the money that you do have to elders or people in need, and very much the culture for sort of white middle class Australian, it isn't really about that. So there are some differences. And then you also have to remember personal behaviours. We have habits around money. They say that people that win the lottery actually end up just as broke as they were when they started. And that is because their behavior doesn't change. Just because they had a lot of money, if they were used to spending it, they are still used to spending it. So, what does money mean for you, and why this conversation? I often, well, I not even often, I daily speak with people who want to know about the courses we offer, and what we do. We have an education business, and we have a property development business. We have investment opportunities, and we have education, and that is what we do. And we have a podcast, and we have an email newsletter goes out, and we have all sorts of things. But when somebody wants to talk to me about the programs, I can tell pretty much straight away if they are going to buy it or not, because I can pick up on their money mindset. And if you think about somebody's money mindset, I can pick up whether they are thinking, I'm not going to invest in myself. That's too much money. That's too expensive. And Bob and I spoke about it this morning. Even if somebody purchased our bundle where you get the online course and the workshop and the joint venture opportunity and stuff that we have, you would make, even if you just did the smallest thing, which is a splitter, and say you only, and the profit, I'm going to say only. So hear the difference in my language on money. Only 100,000. Now to some of you, 100,000 is like, what? That's so much money. But a splitter would, and this is at the very least, a splitter would make 100,000 at the very least. That would be 1,600, a 1,600% increase, meaning 16 times what you paid to get that information, you would get back in a year or under. So that is the difference between that mindset of I want to move forward and grow versus I'm not going to spend that money on myself. And I use that in my own life. And when it comes to investing in myself, I definitely do that a lot. And I've alluded to it in podcasts before, because I think, things can come and go, but our knowledge is something that stays with us, and it's so useful. And investing in myself, for me personally, is probably the best thing I've ever done. Investing in myself to be able to do this. I invest money and time into learning how to speak professionally. If I sat on this podcast and said, and couldn't put it together and ran my words and just made a terrible job of content, people would switch off. So when you invest in yourself, if you think I could make 16 times my investment by investing in myself, why would you not? So how do I pick that up? How do I pick up who won't invest in themselves, who thinks it's a waste of money? So when you think, okay, I'm not going to buy the online course, and for those keyboard warriors who are stressing out right now that there's an advertorial, it's not, it's an example. And if it was, well, I'm allowed to. But if you think about, if you were to invest in a course that can make you 16 times more, but you think, no, that is a waste of my money and I'm scared to lose that money, and you hold it close and you don't spend it, that means you lose that opportunity to make. And that's at the very least, if you were just to do a splitter, which is the smallest thing you could do, at the very least, you lose that opportunity. So can you see how understanding where your money beliefs come from, whether you have that scarcity mindset or an abundant mindset, which mindset you have, can you see how it can totally impact your future? It so does. I remember, you got to remember, I came from a single mum background, and crikey, there were times I was into property at 18, so that was my first house purchase. But there were times in my life where it's been blimmin' tight. We're talking very, very tight. And so when I came on board to, working within this industry, I'd done renovations, so, well over 20, and that was a different thing. I can buy a property worth, between 4 and 700,000, and spend sort of between 40 and 70,000, or whatever on it, and make a profit. I could do that. That was different, because I'd borrow that money from the bank. I'd only spend that much on it, 40 or 70 or whatever it was, usually that rule of thumb, 10%, and then the selling of it. But once I moved into property development, my language changed from, 70,000 or 100,000 to being very comfortable saying, we need 800,000, or I'm currently capital raising 9 million, or I need, for this particular project, I've got a client who's looking for 700,000. And now those words are really normal to me, because it's the world I'm in. I've surrounded myself with people where that's our normal. And I don't even think of that as money. I just think of it as the transactional, as the vehicle. It is just the vehicle that we use to get from where we are to where we want to go. I don't have any attachment to that. In fact, I had a conversation in the last few days with somebody, and they were just wanting to know about investing, and I were talking about the numbers. Then the minimum for this opportunity would be that, and if you had that, it would mean this response. And we very comfortably spoke about $1 million. What would $1 million do? And we just chatted about it. And for me, that is a massive jump from years ago, when $1 million, having that conversation would have felt like so much. But as we know now, it's, that's just one house. But the reason I point this out is because the people you surround yourself with, when that becomes your normal, it becomes a lot easier for you to understand that this is a possible and normal thing. And also remember, at the start of that, I started talking about the vehicle. It is just a vehicle. Money is just paper. We are the ones who attach that meaning to it. Do we attach that hold and hold it tight, and hoard it feeling to it, because there's not going to be enough, so we don't want to use it? Or do we attach that, hey, with this, I can make more of this, which gives me back my time, which gives me back holidays, or whatever it gives for you? Which feeling are you attaching to money? Because it's really important you understand that, because your money mindset will right now be determining your level of success. And that is undebatable, because you'll either be using money to help you move forward, or you'll be using it and it'll be stopping you moving forward. Ooh, ouch. And that hurts, doesn't it, when we say that? And I love nothing more than speaking to a person. I spoke to one in the last couple of days, actually, just a young guy, and that a girl, guy, doesn't matter, and it doesn't really matter what age, but it does inspire me when I speak to a young guy and they say they've gotten a certain amount of money and they're so proud of themselves. And I just think, yeah, because they've saved that money, because they've got a plan and they know what they want to do with it. And that excites me. And that's, if you're listening to this podcast, you're into property development, obviously. You're obviously into using property as a vehicle for wealth, because that vehicle creates money for us, which money, the paper stuff that we're talking about, gives us options for life, doesn't it? It means, do we order the entree and the dessert? Do we just have to go down the local surf club for a steak? Are we just getting takeaways, or are we eating at nice restaurants? There's all sorts of things that money can mean for us, food, nice holidays, short getaway weekends, all sorts of things that money gives us the right to, not the right to, I suppose, but gives us the opportunity of having. And that's why we want money. We don't just want paper. We want to use it as our vehicle to create or give us the lifestyle that we're after. But we ultimately are using property development. So what are you going to do from here? Have a real good think about your money mindset. Do you think there's not enough? Should you be investing in yourself? Should you be making your money make money? Or are you already doing that? And I think for a lot of you who are into property development, you realize that you can do something with money, and it is possible. But if you're not taking those action steps forward to get into property development, have a look why. And is it around being too scared to take that first step because you're having to part with some money? Because we do have to part with some money to do property development usually, unless we're doing a joint venture with no money in. Which reminds me, the joint venture workshop is in July on the 27th and 28th in Sydney. So I will pop a link if you want to register for that. More information is coming out about that now. We've got the details on where and when and all of that. So it'll be out in the next few days. But do click on the link and register because it will sell out. It's going to be a great event. And Bob is going to walk through. Sorry, this wasn't meant to be a little advert, but it's turned into one. He's going to work through all of the different creative strategies that there are, but in depth. So, what I'll be walking through how you speak to, how you communicate to, how you find, how you get on board an investor, because I do that on a daily basis. And then Bob will be taking you through all the different strategies that there are, well, not all of course, there's just gazillion, there's plenty. And we are calling it joint ventures, but technically it's not really joint ventures. It's all of the different creative strategies that you can use, whether it's, a stock back deal, meaning they keep some of the stock, or a joint venture with a landowner, or there's an equity partner and money partner and loan partner, all those things. Bob will be walking through those. So anyway, if you are interested in that and you don't have money, but you're thinking, I want to learn how to do that, then click the link below and register for that amazing 2-day workshop, which I think is pretty unheard of in Australia. So come along to that. Anyway, so what do we do if we are feeling like we're trapped in a mindset that's holding us back? And that's a great way to think about it. Ask yourself that. Are you trapped in a mindset that is holding you back? And if you are, what can you do about it? Well, you know me. You probably don't actually, CBA, I'm so about the CBA, clarity, belief, action. And I talk about it. I do have the other podcast, Bounce Back Better. So if you're into that sort of thing, jump over onto that and have a listen there. That's just different strategies on improving your life, not so much about property development. But I would go with CBA. Be clear about what you want, but also be clear about what your current money mindset is. Stop and spend some time thinking about what does hold me back. Why do I not have the amount of money reflected in my bank account that I desire? And what's stopped that? And that's probably, be clear about where you are. Then what is it that you want? And what would make you be able to get there? We have to plan it out. I'm not saying we have to stick to an absolute strict budget, but we could have a plan around how we want to get to a certain place. Because if we don't, you will wake up in 5 years from now, or in 10 years from now, or in 1 year from now, and you could be anywhere. But if you've at least set a destination, if you've got your GPS set, you're more than likely going to be on track for that destination. So be clear about what you want. The other thing I always talk about, CB, believe you can. Believe that it's possible for you. Because if you think, yes, I've got a destination, but I can't actually do that, that's really hard. Once you start talking yourself out of something, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right. You have to believe that this is possible for you. And then you have to start working toward it. And then you have to act on that plan. You can't just think about something and wish it to happen. You have to take the right actions to get you there. Other things you can do to improve your money mindset, like I said, the clients that I worked with in the past, if it's a massive disparity and you have you're a husband and wife, I would definitely recommend getting some counseling around that. Buy some books on it. Buy books, research how you can fix that. If you're not getting the result you want, then you need to try a different approach. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect something new to happen, because it won't. And we all know that. But sometimes when we hear things again and again, it starts making sense. Practice gratitude. Be grateful for what you've got. Attract that positivity into your life. Remember, who do you know you're around and they're a negative person? How do you feel being around them? What sort of opportunities do you think go to them or come to them? Probably not many. What about the positive people, the happy people, the energetic people, the amazing people, the people that make you feel good, the people that are great to be around? What sort of opportunities do you think go their way? Trust me, I know that opportunities come to you if you feel grateful and have that outward feeling. It's obvious that you're a happy, grateful person. You'll have way more opportunities. So if you're not happy, again, get some help and become happy. The other thing is you need to reframe your negative thoughts. Maybe think, okay, I was brought up like that and I'm going to flip that. I was brought up thinking there's never enough money and when I get it, I'm going to hold it tight and never spend it. Or I'm going to absolutely spend it straight away because I'm not used to having it. Whichever one of those it might be for you, flip it. Okay, I am going to spend it. I am going to spend this money, but I'm going to spend it on something that is going to help me move forward and create a better lifestyle for myself, something that's going to make me more money. And it's not for the paper, remember, for the lifestyle that we want. This money is a vehicle. And in this case, we're talking property development, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. Cultivate optimism. Be positive about money. Don't see it as negative. It is not the root of all evil. The love of it is the root of all evil. And even then, I'm thinking, it's okay to like money. I love money. See, I say it like that, but I don't see that as a negative thing. When I say I love money, I like having money. It's nice. You know, when there's nothing nicer than opening your wallet and you go, oh, money. How good's that? Everyone likes, well, I believe everyone likes that feeling of having money. And just be positive about it. Don't see it as something negative because perhaps you were brought up with thinking that people that had lots of money were mean or people that were rich weren't nice people. That is not true. I know some incredibly nice people who are very wealthy. And I'm thinking of a few that have gone through our community and wow, just philanthropists and just great people. And isn't that great if you make a lot of money that you can do positive things with it? So, how good is that? We need to start looking at money in different ways, just like that. Like I said as well, surround yourself with positive people, with people that have money, with people that are positive about money, uh, just with people that have a good energy about money, but just have a good energy anyway. Be around those people, the ones that make you feel good, but especially the ones that make you feel good about money and they have money. And it's not like a negative thing, it's a very positive thing in their life. Of course, I also love the idea that we look after ourselves in a very holistic way. So let's look after our health and our energy. I love that idea. And what if you do that and then attach the same energy that you give to your health and well-being to the way you feel about money? Find something that you are positive about if you don't have a great money mindset. And like, if it is health, if you are passionate about health or you're committed to exercising on a regular basis and feeling good, attach those feelings to the feeling of money and see how you can move forward. Does that help you move forward? Take note of how that works for you. Okay, another one is maybe engage in some positive activities around money. And what could that be? Playing Monopoly? Would that help you? Seeing money for what it is, maybe. It's just paper, but we can do good with it. Uh, a while ago, I started Feel Good Friday, and that's where I did something nice, random to a stranger on a Friday. It actually began end of last financial year. I went into the bank and everyone's trying to do their super contributions on the last day. And there's a line from sort of the start of the bank door halfway to Mozambique, it felt like. And you could feel the tension in the bank. Everyone was stressing out. And the poor lady at the door was doing her best. Okay, you just go there. Can I help you with that? She was doing all her bits and trying to be positive. And people were grumpy. They were being very, I could just feel the air. And, I sat down and did my bits and had to go back the next day. But before I went back, I actually went and bought her a box of chocolates. And then when I went into the bank, she actually came up to me. She remembered my name. She said, "Oh, Hilary, is there anything I can help you with? Were you happy to be in the queue or do you need to go somewhere else?" And I thought, wow, how amazing is that? So it turned out I could just go and do what I needed to do at the ATM, while you're next to the queue. And then before I left, I walked over to her and I had in my bag a box of chocolates and I gave it to her and I said, "I just wanted to say thank you for the amazing job that you do." And she was blown away, almost started crying because it was for no reason. She didn't know, she knew my name. I didn't even know her name. Had no idea what her name was. But it was that feeling for me of abundance and being able to give. It made me feel good, but it also it sort of eliminates that scarcity mindset. That's a very positive activity or action around giving. And for me, giving makes me feel positive about money. I have money to be able to give with. I've since done it to not even my hairdresser, a similar hairdresser down the road took her a bunch of flowers. I've given somebody on who's just the guy that plays the didgeridoo, sits in the main street of the little town where I live, just popped $20 in his little hat, whatever he has out the front of him. But just doing those small random acts of kindness, that feeling makes me feel like I have enough and I can share with others. And that for me makes me feel like it gives me a very positive mindset around money. So I think I can pull this one to an end. I hope I've opened your eyes to how money impacts you and that you can change the way it impacts you if you need to. I actually have one last story. I spoke to a guy a while ago and he rang up and he had an interesting tale. I'm very good with people's stories, so I often remember their story and not their name, but I remember so much about them. And he had some bad times, some bad luck had happened, and he'd ended up raising the children by himself, and there were a lot of things in his story, and he really wanted to invest in himself, and he ended up doing that. But I think for me, it showed me, even though he was coming from a place right now that is probably, he's in probably a lacking state of financial situation, that he sees his future as big and he knows his way to do it. And I know he knows his way to do it. And I know he's listening. And it was great to see you the other day. But if you have that plan in place and you start taking those steps toward it and you believe it's possible, then it totally is. And I genuinely know that he will get there because he has that relationship with money that he can, it's a good one, it's healthy. This is the thing that can help me get to where I want to go. So there you go. There's a lot to unpack there. I've had a good old yak about money today, and I hope I've inspired you to perhaps check into your money mindset. What is it like? Do you need to work on it? And how can you make you use property development, have money from it, and just have the lifestyle that you want? Because I know personally, having been a single mum and starting my journey in property to where I am today, that it was because of what my father installed in me when I was young that I've been able to get to here. So if you've got a money belief that isn't working for you, you go change it. Anyway, that's me for now. I'll catch you next week. All righty. It'll be back to Bob and I. Bye for now.